going to do a pop-up. I've been promising to do this article for a while, and it stays up in my browser tab. So I'm going to take this opportunity to go through the article and share through Gladio glasses my take on the article. So this is going to require the extent of my ability in doing presentations and all that other stuff, which normally I don't do anything with. So we're going to jump right in. And this is the article that we're going to go through. So this is a Covert Magazine article that originally appeared in 2021. And it's not the new evidence that was just recently released. It was new at the time. And it's by Jeremy Kuzmarov. So this obviously, he's got the CIA, FBI, mafia, all of them. And of course, we've discovered through our Operation Gladio dig is that they all work together. So I'm not even sure at this point it's worth distinguishing between the groups because they're all collectively working towards the same end. Okay, it starts off talking about the role that Kamala Harris plays in the cover-up, which we will get to, and the California parole commissioners during the time that she was Attorney General requesting for him to be paroled. So the article starts out on June 5th, 1968, a few minutes after midnight. RFK was shot and killed at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles while walking through a narrow serving area called the Pantry. Kennedy had just won the California primary and was on his way to a room where print media reporters were waiting to hear him speak. Now, keep in mind that we've talked about the 1968 election and how it had went back and forth because Johnson was not going to run. And it was known going into the California primary on the Democrat side that if RFK locked in the California win, that the rest of the slate was going to be smooth sailing. So this was literally like making him the nominee on the Democrat side. And immediately after that happens, he's assassinated. In early March, LBJ had thrown open the race by announcing that he would not select re-election because of his failure in Vietnam. Kennedy emerged as a leading contender and was energized by the youth wing of the party. Kennedy was in many ways a strange liberal icon because he grew up idolizing Herbert Hoover, was closest in his family to his father, Joseph, the millionaire business tycoon, began his career supporting Joseph McCarthy's anti-communist witch hunt, called the victory against communism in Vietnam in the early 1960s, and oversaw a terrorist campaign designed to overthrow the Cuban government. Now, obviously, what's interesting about all of that is this anti-communist is kind of the nickname for Operation Gladio operatives. And of course, we know that the terrorist campaign designed to overthrow Cuban government was a covert Gladio operation using Cuban exiles who were also used in domestic terror events in the United States. Nevertheless, by the latter part of the 1960s, Kennedy had evolved into a crusader for the poor and a dove on Vietnam who was trying to ride the wave of protest movements into the White House. Biographers Lester and Irene David wrote that Bobby was the Kennedy who felt deepest, cared the most, and fought the hardest for humanity, crying out against America's involvement in the Vietnam War. championing the causes of Blacks, Hispanics, Mexican Americans, and crusading against the suffering of children, the elderly, and anyone else hurt or bypassed by social and economic progress. And of course, this is where the Rainbow Coalition comes into play as well, because of the interaction of people from all backgrounds banding together. And we're not allowed to have that. There has to be division. You cannot have anyone that brings everyone together, as we're seeing play out with Trump right now. After Kennedy's death, the Democrat Party became a shadow of its former self, with 6 of the next 9 presidents being Republican. The party in this period abandoned its core base, the union, laborers, minorities, and blue-collar workers, and started catering to Wall Street. And here you have a picture of him basically having been shot, and it says 5 others shot by assailant. He wasn't immediately killed. He was transported to a hospital. According to the official version, Kennedy was shot and killed by a lone gunman, Sirhan, a 24-year-old Palestinian-born Jordanian citizen who was allegedly aghast by Kennedy's recent decision to send 50 jet bombers to Israel to do harm against the Palestinians. And that's really weird. It's 1968. Kennedy's recent decision to send 50 jet bombers to Israel. Kennedy was not in a position to send any aircraft anywhere, just FYI. But I do find it interesting that he's a Jordanian citizen, because we know that Jordan has been under basically the control of the UK government since its inception. Also, the Palestinian-born piece of this is very interesting. According to his mother, Sirhan had been traumatized as a child by the violence in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. His family home in East Jerusalem was destroyed by Israeli bombing raids, and he had witnessed the death of his older brother, who was killed by a Jordanian military vehicle that was swerving to escape Israeli gunfire. So again, even if you believe this story, it would make someone at least mention the fact that he was radicalized by Israeli violence. No, never talked about. Professional football player Roosevelt Greer and 1968 Olympic gold medalist Raffer Johnson were among the several men who subdued and disarmed Sirhan after a struggle. Now, what's interesting about that, if you look into Rosie Greer, let's look at him for just a second. He becomes a football player, bodyguard, actor, singer. What do we know about people that become actors and singers? He becomes a Protestant minister. If you look down here, it goes through his early life, his education, professional football, television. He was given his own television show on ABC. And what did we learn about ABC during the Operation Mockingbird? That basically it was a mouthpiece for the CIA. It says he was serving as a bodyguard for a friend. Interesting. So he's there. It also says that, so I see George Plimpton has a gun pointed in his face. Well, who's George Plimpton? He happens to be a American sports writing, played in the New York Philharmonic Orchestra. He goes to this St. Bernard school, grows up in Long Island, in a hamlet of Rhode Island. And his mother, Pauline Ames, botanist Oak Ames, specializing in orchids from Massachusetts, the grandson of Congressman Ames. And there's a whole long litany of these people that he's related to. And looky here, he went to Phillips Xavier Academy. And what did we, oh, and he went to Harvard too. What do we find out about all of that? That those are all grooming schools. So let's go back. Now, so we know a little bit about Rosie Greer and his later fame in Hollywood. And then we have Johnson. Who's Johnson? He was a Summer Olympics contender, participant. He won the title at the Pan American Games. And let's see if he has any. Johnson played basketball under, I'm actually related to John Wooden. That's my mom's maiden name. And he has his big claim to fame here on his Wikipedia. And he goes on to also be involved in the limelight. He becomes, he's given several awards, but he also becomes an actor. Here's all of the shows that he acted in. So, very interesting that they're right there as bodyguards. Subsequently, Sirhan was arrested and convicted of murder. The prosecution during his trial, led by World War II hero Lynn Buck Compton, who was subsequently appointed by Ronald Reagan as a justice of the California Court of Appeals, showed that Sirhan was seen at the Ambassador Hotel on June 3rd, 2 nights before the attack, to learn the building's layout, and that he visited a local gun range. So, very interesting. Alvin Clark, Sirhan's garbage collector, testified that Sirhan had told him a month before the attacks of his intention to shoot Kennedy, a fact seemingly confirmed by diaries that Sirhan kept, which showed premeditation. Sirhan initially confessed to the killing, but later claimed to have no memory of it. After the events transpired, he had appeared calm, but not in complete control of his mind. Sirhan's death sentence was commuted to life in prison, and he was denied parole 15 times. In 2018 interview with the Washington Post, RFK said that he traveled to meet Sirhan at the correctional facility in San Diego, and after a lengthy conversation, he believed that Sirhan did not kill his father and that there was a second gunman involved. Kennedy Jr.'s view is shared by his sister, Kathleen Kennedy Townsend, the former lieutenant governor of Maryland. It is also shared by the regional director of the UAW, Paul Schrade, one of Bobby's closest advisors, who was shot the night that he was killed. In 2016, Schrade testified in support of Sirhan's parole, stating his belief that a second shooter killed Kennedy and that Sirhan was intended as a distraction from the real gunman by an unknown conspiracy. Kennedy Jr. has pointed out that Sirhan's appointed attorney at his original trial, Grant Cooper, was Johnny Roselli's personal lawyer. Mobster. Roselli, he said, was a mobster who ran the assassination program for the CIA against Castro. That's true. I mean, he basically was operating for the CIA. Roselli's name comes up in a lot of our Operation Gladio because he ran the Cuban exiles, in one of many, but he was involved with them. Cooper pressured Sirhan to plead guilty so that there would be no trial. Kennedy believes the real assassin was Thane Eugene Cesar. an employee of Lockheed's Burbank facility, which manufactured the CIA produced U-2 spy plane, and previously Hughes Aircraft, who was moonlighting as a security guard for Ace Security Services. Now, this part is huge, actually. Um, the CIA U-2 program was also connected to JFK's assassination because Oswald worked on the U-2 in Japan for the CIA while he was in the Marines. This ties the two together. So, after the shooting, Kennedy Sr. was photographed with Cesar's clip on tie next to him, which was apparently yanked off Cesar. Cesar had told police that he had a hold of Bobby's right arm when Sirhan began firing at him, and then pulled his gun and grabbed the senator and fell backwards. Later, however, Cesar changed his story and said that he was shoved by an unknown individual after Sirhan opened fire and drew his gun only after he scrambled to his feet. So already we're changing our story. And let me go on back here to the Hughes aircraft. That's very, very big. Hughes aircraft comes up again for domestic Operation Gladio over and over and over again. He worked intricately with the CIA, people that worked for Hughes aircraft, all embedded with the CIA as well. So just wanted to mention that. Okay, in one interview, Cesar said that he did not see Kennedy get shot, and in another, given right after the shooting when doctors had not yet examined Kennedy or issued any statements, stated that he said he saw Kennedy shot 4 times in the head, chest, and shoulders. Cesar considered the Kennedys the biggest bunch of crooks that ever walked the earth, and worked for presidential campaigns of Alabama's segregationist Governor George Wallace. Before the killing, he had been seen in Los Angeles in the company of a Florida hitman. The man who saw him said Cesar was owned by Howard Hughes and was as tough as they come. Now, of course, the Florida hitman is going to be associated with the CIA mafia dealings in Florida, which at the time was huge, and the hotbed of Operation Gladio in Miami. Hughes was the owner of a major aerospace company and godfather of Las Vegas with deep connections to the Republican Party and the CIA. Jim Yoder, who bought the alleged assassination weapons from Cesar after Kennedy's death, claimed that Cesar worked in off-limits area of Lockheed to which only special personnel had access. These areas were controlled by the CIA. RFK Jr. believes that Cesar was one of the ones that shot his father in the back of the head after hiding in the pantry and waiting for his appearance in the pantry, or alternatively, that he held his father and shot him 3 times under the arm, while another assassin, a man dressed in a busboy outfit, fired the 2 shots to Kennedy's head that killed him, with a gun that was disguised or small enough to be hidden. Planning at one point to visit Cesar in the Philippines until he demanded a payment of $25,000, RFK Jr. stated, with 77 people in the pantry, every eyewitness said Sirhan was always in front of my father at a distance of 3 to 6 feet. Sirhan fired 2 shots toward my father before he was tackled. From under the dog pile, Sirhan emptied his 8-chamber revolver, firing 6 more shots in the opposite direction, 5 of them striking bystanders and 1 going wild. Cesar was a bigot who hated the Kennedys for their advocacy of civil rights for blacks. By his own account, Cesar was directly behind my dad, holding his right elbow with his own gun drawn when my dad fell backwards on top of him. Cesar repeatedly changed his story about exactly when he drew his weapon. According to the coroner, Dr. Thomas Noguchi, all 4 shots that struck my father were contact shots fired from behind my dad with the barrel touching or nearly touching his body, which there's no way Sirhan did that. As he fell back, he reached back and tore off Cesar's tie clip. Cesar sold his 22 to a coworker, Yoder, weeks after the assassination, warning him that it had been used in a crime. Cesar lied to police, claiming that he disposed of the gun months before the assassination. Kennedy Jr. concluded police had never seriously investigated Cesar's role in my father's killing, adding that the LAPD unit, which investigated his dad's assassination, was ran by active CIA operatives, which is true, who destroyed thousands of pieces of evidence. Now, this obviously is an additional crucial point, which I point out often. The people that orchestrate these assassinations already have the cover story afterwards. The local police, the FBI, are all in on the cover story. So there's not going to be an actual investigation as to everyone that could have been involved in the murder, because they already have the patsy identified. So when people scream about the fact that they're where's all the evidence, where are all the they destroy the evidence because it's never going to be allowed to contradict their actual story and who they're going to blame it on. So it should not be surprising to anybody that there's not pieces of evidence that people can go back and open boxes and go, oh, this is completely counter to the story, because anything completely counter to the story gets destroyed. The case against Sirhan, being the lone gunman, can be summarized in 6 points. Sirhan's gun had 8 bullets in it. According to officials, 3 of the Sirhan bullets hit Kennedy. A 4th one went through his coat, and 5 bullets struck other victims. Okay, I'm not going to do math in public, but that adds up to more than 8. But 1 bullet was also lost in the ceiling space, which they find. The crime scene photos show investigators pointing to bullet holes in door frames and a ceiling panel. There were bullets in these door jambs. So we're already over 8. Investigators found 12 points of entry in the 6 victims, with 3 bullet holes photographed in the ceiling. LAPD criminologist Dwayne Wolfer said it's unbelievable how many holes were in the kitchen ceiling. Because, of course, Sirhan got tackled and continued shooting. So, of course, there would be bullets in the ceiling. This shows the bullets here. And there's a lot. An audio tape made by Polish journalist Stanislaw Pruszynski recorded 13 shots. Analysis of the tape found that it showed the gunshots to be coming from 2 separate directions. And we know that's possible. We've been watching it in the assassination attempt with Trump. LA County Coroner Thomas Negoci's report, which mysteriously went missing from the LAPD's final report, just like I said, found that Kennedy had been hit by 3 bullets from the rear, including 1 in his head behind his right ear. This conclusion rules out Sirhan, who had been identified by all witnesses as being in front. And so you see the picture here where the bullets are coming from, and Sirhan is over here. Negoci, Wolfer, and Pasadena criminologist William Harper, drawing on forensic and eyewitness evidence, all concluded that the shots which killed Kennedy came from close range, a point of near direct contact. Sirhan never got anywhere near that close. He was always at least 3 feet away. Sirhan's gun was never matched to the bullets that killed Kennedy either. William Harper, who survived an assassination attempt on the eve of his scheduled testimony before a grand jury investigating the handling of the firearm evidence, concluded that 2 .22 caliber guns were involved in the assassination. Now, why would somebody be trying to kill William Harper if all he's going to do is tell the truth? An attempted assassination on the witness. That's how you cover up everything. Evan Freed, a photographer who was standing near Kennedy when the shooting started, said that another man besides Sirhan, who looked like Sirhan but was wearing darker clothing, fired the first shot at Kennedy, and that a man made a failed attempt to grab him afterwards as he ran out of the pantry. Other witnesses confirmed the same story, observing a man with a gun under a newspaper and a woman with a polka dotted dress running out of the room. Donald Schluelsman, a runner for Los Angeles TV station, reported on air minutes after Kennedy's assassination that after Sirhan fired his gun, a security guard, referring to Cesar, fired back and struck Kennedy 3 times. Schulzman also stated that he spotted 2 revolvers other than Sirhan's and that both had been fired, an observation confirmed by testimony and statements introduced at the official hearing in Los Angeles Superior Court. One of the most important witnesses was Carl Euchre, a maitre d' at the Ambassador Hotel, who was the first one to grab Sirhan during the shooting in an attempt to subdue him. He told filmmaker Ted Sharash that Sirhan could not have been the killer, he stated. Sirhan at no time was firing from behind Senator Robert Kennedy. It happens every single time. Every single time. Hold on just a second, guys. Sorry about that. We have a yard guy here. He wants his money. Okay, so the maitre d'. Sirhan at no time had been firing from behind Senator Kennedy. No, not an inch from Kennedy's head. I don't believe that it was Sirhan's gun firing back from an upward direction. I think I would have seen it. I was the closest one. In order for Sirhan to get that close to Kennedy from behind, he would have had to pass me, and he didn't pass me. I had him very tight, pushed against the steam table while Senator Kennedy staggered backwards, and Mr. Charade dropped to the floor first. So this does not fit with what Mr. Fitz, the prosecuting attorney later promoted by Ronald Reagan to be a Superior Court judge, told the jury. Euchre also said that he saw a guard, Thane Cesar, who banished a gun, which was odd. He testified that he had grabbed Sirhan after the second shot, not the fourth shot, which would further prove the existence of a second shooter because Kennedy was shot 3 times under the arm and twice in the head, and 7 bullets were recovered from 6 victims. Again, more than 8. Investigator Lisa Peace wrote that if Euchre had grabbed Sirhan after the second shot, then someone else had to have shot Kennedy at least twice. And again, all of the bullets come from somewhere other than the front. As Kennedy had provably been shot 4 times from near close range. Not only was Kennedy shot from the back, but witnesses saw someone shooting at him from an elevated position 12 to 16 inches above Kennedy's head with knee or body on a steam table. This could not have been Sirhan. He was identified by 4 credible witnesses, including Euchre, as shooting at Kennedy from the floor on a slightly upward trajectory, which made sense since Sirhan was 4 inches shorter than Kennedy. Euchre specified further that he pushed Sirhan up on a table after he grabbed him in a headlock. He was not on a table before. Richard Lubick, a 31-year-old television producer and campaign aide, heard a voice, "Kennedy, you son of a bitch," and then heard two shots from what sounded like a starter pistol at a track meet. The shots came from a man who had his knee on a small table or air conditioning vent and lifted himself up on his knee to obtain elevation while shooting. He had bare arms when shooting. Sirhan was wearing a long sleeve shirt. Some witnesses thought Sirhan it's on the table, thought Sirhan was firing a cap gun. The real assassins appear to have waited until Sirhan fired the first shot and people focused on him and then moved quickly to get the job done. Sirhan's function was that of a magician's assistant. He provided the distraction by firing blanks, which were designed to deceive the mind's eye. The fact that the shooter was elevated would have also been part of the plan, since people's natural instinct in a crisis is to look around them, not up. After the shooting, Sandra Serrano, a 20-year-old Pasadena City college student, observed a 20-something Hispanic-looking man wearing a gold sweater and dark-haired Caucasian girl with a good figure, a funny nose, which runs repeatedly through eyewitnesses, wearing a white dress with black polka dots. The two were running down the hallway to a fire exit. Serrano had seen the pair with Sirhan earlier in the night, while Vincent DePero said that he saw Sirhan and the girl in the polka dotted dress just before Kennedy was shot, with wicked smiles. The girl was running to the fire exit. She turned to Serrano, laughing, and said, "We shot him, we shot him." Astonished, Serrano asked, "Who did you shoot?" And she replied, "Senator Kennedy." There's the polka dotted dress. It's not the polka dotted dress, but it's what everybody was describing as looking like it. An elderly couple named Bernstein witnessed this exchange and told LAPD Sergeant Paul Saraga, who put out an all-points bulletin on the pair. At the point, however, a police radio blackout commenced, which, according to Saraga, lasted between 15 and 20 minutes. In other words, it was supposed to be an APB, hey, grab these guys, and then all of a sudden, nothing was transmitted over the radios. So if they saw them, no one was coordinating with someone else to pick them up. Absolutely nothing. 15 to 20 minutes for them to get away. Afterwards, Detective Inspector John Powers ordered a cancellation of the description of the two suspects, saying that we don't want to make a federal case out of it. We've got the suspect in custody. Shut it down. These comments suggest a police cover-up. Tim Tate and Brad Johnson, authors of the 2018 book, The Assassination of RFK, Crime, Conspiracy, and Cover-Up, wrote that the LAPD, quote, constructed the criminal equivalent of a Potemkin village, Soviet-modeled village that masked underlying brutality of the Soviet system, a Hollywood-style set whose facade concealed the truth, that evidence was overlooked, destroyed, and suppressed, and witnesses were ignored or intimidated into silence. This is exactly what happened at JFK's assassination, after which LA law enforcement locked the whole saga away, hiding their misdeeds and incompetence. It was not incompetence. These people had been trained. We've already discovered this. They had been trained by the CIA. The CIA was embedded in the LAPD. They had their own intelligence apparatus going. This was not incompetence. As an example of police malfeasance, again, all on purpose, no effort was made to perform a ballistics test on Thane Cesar's 22 caliber gun to see whether the bullets matched that which killed Kennedy. That was not malfeasance, I guess. In addition, bullets were planted in Sirhan's car. The crime scene area was never properly roped off. Hotel employees were allowed to mop up the blood from the kitchen floor right after it happened, and the LAPD burned more than 2,400 photographs of the crime scene and investigation in a medical waste incinerator before Sirhan's trial. Complete cover up. The LAPD task force to set the investigation to investigate the killing, the special unit senator, was headed by 22-year LAPD veteran Lieutenant Manuel Pina, who reportedly killed 11 people in the line of duty, more than any other officer in the history of the department. In November 1967, Pina temporarily retired from the LAPD to work where? USAID Office of Public Safety in South America? Under CIA agent Byron Ingalls? Yes, folks. Yes, he is another Mitterrand. He is another Mitterrand. Manuel Pina is another Dan Mitterrand, working for the same CIA guy, working for the same Office of Public Safety, which taught kidnapping, assassination, and torture. Now, you wonder why 11 people were killed in the line of duty? It would behoove someone to go back and look at every single one of them and find out what importance they played in other investigations or whatever. He's a hitman. Manuel Pina is a hitman for the CIA. As we see, one of his colleagues, Dan Mitterrand, not a police officer, a police chief, was kidnapped and killed by not left-wing guerrillas, but by patriots wanting their country back in Uruguay in retaliation for torture techniques that were CIA-trained. Charles O'Brien, California's chief deputy attorney general, told William Turner that USAID was being used as an ultra-secret CIA unit, which is true, that was known to insiders as the Department of Dirty Tricks, true, and that it was involved in teaching foreign intelligence agents the techniques of assassination, which is true. To help oversee the RFK investigation, Pina selected another CIA compatriot, Sergeant Enrique Hank Hernandez, another CIA compatriot, a polygraph specialist who was subsequently promoted to lieutenant in recognition for a job well done in covering up the assassination of RFK. Hernandez had played a key role in the CIA's Unified Police Command, a training operation for Latin American countries, and received a medal from the Venezuelan government for his efforts in helping prevent Fidel Castro's exportation of Cuban Revolution onto its soil. Yeah, that's not what he was doing, but he was definitely working for the CIA. Under Hernandez and Pina's direction, the Special Investigation Unit became what authors William Turner and John Christian termed a kind of Bermuda Triangle, into which reports and major leads on the case went to disappear. The special unit at one point requested the FBI report any attempts to write stories regarding the assassination, which might tend to suggest a conspiratorial at one point requested that the FBI report to them any attempt to conspiratorialize the assassination. So they were putting out requests to identify any journalist that was reporting the truth. That's important. The special unit did question the woman with the polka dot dress, though the tape was made blank and witnesses who had seen her, most notably Sandra Serrano, were intimidated, coerced, and smeared. When Paul Saraga, the LAPD officer who put in the All Points Bulletin, prepared a report, the special unit disposed of it, and it never surfaced again. The special unit further tried to have Coroner Nkochi commit perjury. When he refused to comply, it questioned his competency and character and had him suspended, with his findings never seeing the light of day. Character assassination if they can't actually assassinate you. Documents assembled by New Orleans DA Jim Garrison that pointed to the connection with the JFK assassination were among those, perhaps not surprisingly, also ignored because there's direct correlations. The LAPD took no action additionally when Roy Donald Murray, a prosperous cotton rancher in the North California town of Earlemont, who hated Kennedy and Cesar Chavez, was overheard by a local police officer in May of 1968 boasting about pledging $2,000 to his mafia friends in LA for an assassination account for RFK. The FBI also did not follow up on a report by Edward Hugh Pohl, who served time with Jimmy Hoffa in the prison, and said that Hoffa had boasted to fellow prisoners that he had put a hit out on Bobby Kennedy, who had been one of the ones during the stint as Attorney General that had put him in jail. Not surprising. Lisa Pease referred to the Sirhan trial as a show trial. Key witnesses were never asked to testify, ballistics tests were never ordered, and discrepancies in the LAPD story and shoddy investigation went unchallenged by the defense team. Remarkably, Coroner Nkochi's report, which detailed the existence of two shooters and specified that Sirhan could not have been the one to deliver the lethal shots, was not entered into evidence at the trial. And Sirhan's attorney, Grant Cooper, cut short his testimony. Cooper also cut short the testimony of LAPD criminologist Dwayne Wolfer, who was cited in later probes to have been negligent in his conduct and who had been photographed pointing to bullet holes in the wall, which he now said were not genuine, but they were bullet holes. Cooper had had a felony indictment hanging over his head during the Sirhan trial, which was withdrawn once the death sentence was passed. So in other words, they were blackmailing Cooper. William Pepper, who took over Sirhan's case in 2010 after serving as the MLK family lawyer, said there can be no reasonable doubt that this conflict influenced more precisely directly Cooper's trial performance. In her 2018 book, A Lie Too Big to Fail, which all along is always talking about, Lisa Pease suggests that the hit team included a 21-year-old bookstore clerk named Michael Wayne and the girl in the polka-dotted dress who collected the press badges, which enabled members of the team to go anywhere in the hotel, which would be necessary if you're going to stage people. Wayne later helped provide a diversion while the assassin got away. Suspiciously, he was found with the business card of Dwayne Gilbert, a white right-wing extremist and militant involved in previous theft of dynamite. And read that as probably an Operation Gladio guy. That's a right-wing extremist. Throughout the night, the hit teams communicated through radio with different teams likely prepared for Kennedy in different rooms of the hotel. One of the team's members manned the southwest fire escape so the girl in the polka-dotted dress could sneak Sirhan into the hotel that way. A man in a maroon coat stood next to the door all night holding a radio. When the woman in the polka-dotted dress shouted, "We shot him," as she and the assassin were making their escape, she may have been trying to alert her cohort back at the door. The secret team appears to have been part of a highly sophisticated intelligence operation that required a large support team and compliance with the LAPD, the Sheriff's Department, the DA, the state government, the media, and the FBI, and the CIA. They left that part out. The operation additionally required control of Sirhan's defense team, access to trained assassins, and access to a patsy that could be hypnotized which only the CIA could provide. An Irish filmmaker, Shane O'Sullivan, identified two men photographed at the Ambassador Hotel on the night Kennedy was killed as Bulova Watch Company sales manager attending the company's convention, which just so happened to be there. O'Sullivan stated that Bulova was a well known CIA cover. One of the men bore some resemblance to CIA agent George Jonasides, which again, his file is being withheld in the JFK assassination. So this again ties these things directly together. And it is this George Jonasides, however you say his name, who was the chief of the CIA psychological warfare branch in Miami during the 1960s, who later served as a CIA liaison to the House Select Committee on Assassinations, just like Dulles served on the Warren Commission. They always put one of their people in there to make sure that the information is suppressed. So this is a CIA agent that appears to be both in the JFK assassination and the RFK assassination. And I did check this Bulova. There has been substantiated connections that it was a company that the CIA embedded their assets in to travel internationally. CIA agent Bradley Ayers and diplomat Wayne Smith, who worked with him at the U.S. Embassy in Havana, identified CIA assassin David Sanchez Morales as the man in a photo taken at the Ambassador Hotel the night of the killings. All right. So this is saying that David Sanchez Morales was also photographed, and he's a CIA assassin as well, and that fellow CIA agents identified him in pictures as being there that night. O'Sullivan featured an interview with Morales' former attorney, Robert Walton, who quoted Morales, the CIA assassin, as having said, "I was in Dallas when we got the son of a bitch, and I was in Los Angeles when we got the other little bastard." That's from his attorney. CIA assassin. Operation Gladio. Another important potential CIA connection emerges with the mysterious girl in the polka dotted dress. Witnesses believe that she may have been Patricia Elaine Neal, a high school dropout from Red Bluff, California. In 1973, she married Jerry Capehart, a Korean War veteran who managed the Hollywood musical Rosemary Clooney, as well as a country singer, Glenn Campbell, and in 1950s rock star Eddie Cochran, with whom he co-wrote some famous songs. Capehart's son, Ray, told researchers that his father told him he had at one time worked for the CIA and that he had been involved in mind control experiments, which, by the way, Korea War, that was used. Korea War had stay-behind units. The CIA was intimately involved in the Korean War, and they were doing torture on people that they captured, just like they did in Vietnam. So definitely consistent with everything we know about Operation Gladio. Not coincidentally, Sirhan appears to have been subjected to mind control experiments and programmed to be part of an assassination plot. In 2010, attorneys acting for Sirhan filed a motion in the U.S. District Court for the Central District of California, which argued that he was an involuntary participant in the shooting at the Ambassador Hotel pantry because he had been subject to extensive and sophisticated programming and mind control, which turned him into a robot, a real-life Manchurian candidate. The later is a reference to the film, which we already know, which weirdly enough pictures an American soldier in Korea being made to assassinate a U.S. president. Hello. Anybody listening? Okay. So this is John Frankenheimer. The Manchurian Candidate, a film dovetailed with a CIA disinformation campaign that helped convince the public that the North Koreans and Chinese had brainwashed US POWs during the Korean War. They didn't. It was the CIA doing it. This belief justified the CIA's effort to develop truth drugs and advance brainwashing techniques in Operation Artichoke, Bluebird, and MK Ultra, and to hire hypnotists with the goal of programming people. One Bluebird memo asked, "Can we create by post H control an action contrary to an individual's basic moral principle? Could we seize a subject and in the space of an hour or two, by post H control, have him crash an airplane, wreck a train? Can we alter a person's personality? Crash an airplane, wreck a train. Crash an airplane, wreck a train." Moving on. The answers appear to be yes. In May of 2008, Sirhan was examined by Dr. Daniel Brown, a professor of psychology at Harvard Medical School and expert on hypnosis, who revealed evidence of hypnotically induced altered personality states. Brown observed Sirhan switch into a personality state that responds to a robot-like fashion to certain cues and adopting the behavior of firing a gun at a firing range. While in this state, Sirhan showed a loss of executive control and complete amnesia. After the examination, LAPD officers had noticed in Sirhan an eerie calm, as if he did not genuinely know what he had just done, because he didn't. Two of the men who had overpowered him during the shooting observed Sirhan's tranquil look, with eyes appearing peaceful. When asked by the NBC reporter whether he had planned to kill Senator Kennedy, Sirhan replied, "Only in my mind. I did it, but I was not aware of it." The girl in the pink, I don't know why I keep saying pink polka dots, polka dotted dress may have played the role of the Queen of Diamonds in Search for the Manchurian Candidate. She was there to trigger Sirhan's trance. Dr. Edward Simpson Callas, a San Quentin psychologist who worked extensively with Sirhan in 1969, described Sirhan's comments about Arab-Israeli politics relating to the assassination as very repetitive and spoken like an actor playing a role or reading a script. Simpson Callas believed that Sirhan was indeed a Manchurian candidate who had been prepared by someone, hypnotized by someone. Sirhan revealingly had no memory of writing his diary in which he expressed outrage about Kennedy's sending jet bombers to Israel 2 days before he learned about it, reading an article in the newspaper. What? There were also statements in the diary denouncing capitalism and pointing to Kennedy as a reactionary when Sirhan was not known to espouse any of those views or to even have an interest in politics. Walter Crowe, Sirhan's closest friend at Pasadena City College, had once tried to form a Student for Democrat Society group at the college, and Sirhan was apathetic and would not participate, which, by the way, is a CIA front, but whatever. His diary, written under hypnosis, appears to be a key part of the conspiratorial plot, whose aim was not only to have Kennedy killed, but also to discredit any left-wing views. Before the assassination, Sirhan had disappeared for a 3-month period after falling off a horse. He had wanted to be a jockey. He made frequent trips at the time to Corona, where there was a huge naval surface warfare center implying work for the U.S. government. Sirhan's name appeared in the Corona Police Department firing range, where he was training for his special mission. Herb Elfman reported to police that Sirhan belonged to a secret hypnosis group and referred them to a local radio station employee, Steve Allison, who managed a radio show that interviewed Dr. William Joseph Bryant of the American Institute of Hypnosis. Bryant was a pioneer hypnotist who served as chief of all medical survival training at the U.S. Air Force or brainwashing section in South Korea during the Korean War. There you go. A consultant on the Manchurian Candidate film, he had a long history of programming with the CIA. Within hours of Kennedy's shooting, he told listeners in a Los Angeles radio station that the suspect had probably acted under hypnotic suggestion. Bryant's possible connection to Sirhan is reflected in a reference that Sirhan made in his diaries to the Boston Strangler. Albert DeSalvo, with whom Bryant had worked afterwards, Sirhan had no memory ever of writing about DeSalvo and did not appear to have any knowledge of him at all. Researcher John Christian interviewed two prostitutes who claimed Bryant had confessed to them to programming Sirhan. In March 1977, Bryant was found dead at the age of 51 in a hotel in Las Vegas right after he was summoned to appear before the House Select Committee on Assassinations. So they got that guy. They didn't get the other guy. He was said to have died of natural causes because he was obese and there was no autopsy. Interesting. Yeah, obese just comes out and kills you the day before you're going to obesity, before you're going to testify. Two different insider sources told author Lisa Pease that Robert Mayhew, and this is the guy that works for Howard Hughes, was the mastermind of the entire assassination. A lifelong Republican, Mayhew was a top advisor to Howard Hughes. He had a mob contract through Rosie Roselli and ran assassination plots for the CIA, and that is all true. When the CIA leadership decided to recruit the mafia to murder Fidel Castro, they turned to Mayhew. His company, Robert Mayhew Associates, which I've written extensively about, the inspiration behind Mission Impossible television series, fronted the CIA activities and provided a cover for CIA operatives. Mayhew furthermore had friends at the LAPD, as did the CIA, and the Sheriff's Department, and had run CIA operations in conjunction with them. He knew Thane Cesar, who worked for the Bel Air Patrol, which Mayhew owned. Cesar was listed as a CIA contract agent in the CIA database. John Meyer, a top aide of Howard Hughes from 66 to 70, recounted a meeting between Mayhew and Don Nixon, Richard's brother, at the Desert Inn Country Club in Los Angeles on June 6, 1968. Mayhew was all smiles, and Don Nixon walked in all smiles. They embraced each other, and Don Nixon said, "Well, that prick is dead." And Mayhew said, "Well, it looks like your brother is in now." Yeah, because the Republican nominee in 1968 was Richard Nixon. Dun, dun, dun. Mayhew then joked that they should now be calling Don Nixon Mr. Vice President. Ha ha ha. This conversation does not prove Mayhew was behind Kennedy's killing, but provides a clear motive, one he shared with his former boss, Howard Hughes. Hughes wrote to Mayhew after the assassination that the Kennedy family and their money and influence have been a thorn that has been relentlessly shoved into my gut since the very beginning of my business activities. I hate to be quick on the draw, but I see here an opportunity that may not happen again in a lifetime. I don't aspire to be president, but I do want political strength. And it seems to me that the very people we need to have just fallen smack into our hands. After Kennedy was shot, LBJ, then a lame duck president who had announced that he would not seek re-election because of the debacle in Vietnam, repeatedly phoned the Secret Service to ask if Kennedy had died, pacing the floor for hours, phone in hand, muttering, I've got to know, is he dead? Is he dead? Johnson also instructed his aide, Joseph Califano, to call Larry Levinson, another aide, to get an update from the Secret Service. Levinson, in turn, asked Califano if this was something Johnson was to have happen, which appears to have been the case. According to Ted Van Dyke, an aide to Vice President Hubert Humphreys, when Humphrey got the commanding general of the U.S. Air Force to dispatch a plane for a top brain surgeon to be flown to LA to operate on Kennedy, who at that point was still alive, President Johnson canceled the plane, claiming that Humphrey had no authority to send it. Johnson had long hated Kennedy and would have been humiliated by his nomination for president. After Kennedy's death, Johnson instructed his aide to develop a draft Johnson movement. He was going to get back into the. He hoped to arrive as a surprise guest at the Democrat National Convention to great acclaim as the man capable of saving the Democrat Party, but that was not to be. Author Robert Morrow, in his 1988 book, The Senator Must Die, suggests that Kennedy's assassination went under a pseudonym, Ali Ahmed, and worked for Iranian intelligence under the Shah of Iran, who had also recruited Sirhan as part of the plot. Read that again. Ali Ahmed had worked for Iranian intelligence under the Shah, which was set up by the CIA under Savak. According to Morrow, the Kennedys had become enemies of the Shah, who had been installed in power by the CIA coup when, as a senator, John Kennedy uncovered the Shah's misuse of USAID funds and launched an attack on him on the Senate floor. Bobby Kennedy subsequently snubbed the Shah by bypassing Iran on a goodwill trip around the world, and Kennedy threatened to cut off all aid if he was elected. And then his father had a few words to say about that. When JFK was assassinated, the Shah privately was delighted. In 1968 election, he poured millions of dollars into support for Nixon. Alex Godari, the Shah's liaison to the U.S. Mafia, said that the mob claimed with Nixon as president, the Shah would be in a position to eventually raise oil prices. Then, with the U.S. backing control of the whole Middle East. However, if Robert Kennedy won, the Shah would be totally isolated from any further U.S. aid, military support, and would be censored worldwide. According to Morrow's hypothesis, the Shah ordered Colonel Mansour Rafsanjani, the head of the Savak, the Shah's secret police that had been created by the CIA, to eliminate Kennedy, and Rafsanjani recruited Sirhan and the other main culprit, Ali Ahmed, aka Khalid Kubal. Kubal was pictured in a photo at the Ambassador Hotel next to Jesse Unruh, the Speaker of the California State Assembly, who had been managing Kennedy's presidential campaign, wearing a yellow sweater with a camera hanging from a strap around his neck. Morrow believes that the camera was disguised as a gun, and that Sirhan was there to provide a distraction that would enable Kubal, Kubal to carry out the killing and afterwards get away with the girl in the polka dotted dress who was his accomplice. So that's the Hispanic looking man that was going out the door with her. Sirhan fired 2 shots at Kennedy, was tackled and drew attention, giving space for Kubal to rapidly pull the lethal camera up behind Kennedy's ear and shoot him 4 times behind the ear. With the crowd turning on Sirhan, the pandemonium breaking out, Kubal then motioned to his accomplice and found his way through the crowd down a corridor to an exit, after which they jumped into a shiny black car and sped away on Wilshire Boulevard away from the hotel. Although Kubal's description matched some eyewitness accounts of the man accompanying the girl in the polka dotted dress, Proof for Morrow's theory has not been established. Kubal, whose real name is Khalid Kubal Kuwa, sued the Boston Globe for libel and for publishing Morrow's account and was rewarded damages, which means nothing. Allard Lowenstein, who was the former director of the National Student Association and Democrat congressman from Nassau County, New York, from 69 to 71, who had led the Dump Johnson movement because of Johnson's support for the Vietnam War. Anguished by Kennedy's death, he was able to review Nokochi's autopsy report specifying that Kennedy had been hit from behind by bullets fired at point blank range. Lowenstein also criticized the trial record, searching for testimony that placed Sirhan's gun to the rear and within inches of Bobby, and finding that there was none. Lowenstein followed up by interviewing eyewitnesses who pointed to Sirhan being several feet rather than inches away from Bobby, and to him having been subdued after firing 2 shots. He found their stories were consistent with their earlier testimony. The official response to Lowenstein's queries by the LAPD was one of stonewalling. He realized that a propaganda campaign was being fabricated to deliver information that was the exact opposite of the facts. In March of 1980, Lowenstein was shot and killed in his office by a former protege, Dennis Sweeney, who claimed, among other crazy things, that he had received messages in his head broadcast by CIA transmitters. After Sweeney shot Lowenstein, Sweeney calmly waited in Lowenstein's office to be arrested. He was deemed insane and sentenced to a mental hospital. At the time of the shooting, Lowenstein was on the verge of getting a commitment from Jimmy Carter to reopen the investigation into Sirhan's case if Carter was reelected to a second term that November. So is the reason why the CIA set up Jimmy Carter is because he was going to reopen RFK's case? March 1980. Carter is basically told the entire RFK assassination is a sham, and he's working with Lowenstein to reopen the investigation. Lowenstein gets assassinated, and Jimmy Carter is basically set up with the whole, although it happened before, but the Iran-Contra, or excuse me, the Iranian hostage, the overthrow of the embassy, and you can just see all of this stuff. So the whole time that he was probably talking to Jimmy Carter, there's someone listening to Jimmy Carter being talked to, and they have the overthrow of the embassy. They're going to keep the hostages to sabotage the election. You just see these things going parallel with each other. Maniacal, nasty, evil people. But as writer Robert Vaughn put it, Al died, Carter lost to Reagan, and the official veil of silence remained intact. In 2012, while serving as California's Attorney General, Vice President Kamala Harris had Sirhan's request for a retrial dismissed. She argued that the overwhelming evidence existed against Sirhan's claims that he was existed against the claims that he had been programmed to fire a gun as a diversion. Harris stated in federal court that Sirhan cannot possibly show that no reasonable juror would have convicted him if a jury had considered this new evidence and allegations in light of the overwhelming evidence supporting the convictions and the available evidence thoroughly debunking Sirhan's second shooter. So there's no evidence debunking it. All of the evidence support it. But that's the reason why it's so important for them to destroy evidence so they can forever say there is no evidence because they destroyed it. In fact, as this essay has displayed, there's overwhelming evidence supporting, not debunking, the second shooter theory. This evidence ranges from eyewitness accounts to autopsy reports, bullets being fired, the capacity of Sirhan's gun. There's also circumstantial evidence, huge. Harris' stance is part of a 50-year effort by the government authorities to cover up the truth of Kennedy's assassination and to protect the powerful people who coordinated it. Had Kennedy lived, American history would have turned out completely different. For one thing, the major riots outside the party convention over against the nomination of Hubert Humphrey, which divided and destroyed the Democrat Party, would have never taken place. Kennedy might then have replicated his brother's defeat of Nixon in 1960, which Nixon was not all about, which explains his brother's involvement. And as president, ended the Vietnam War instead of expanding it. He would have expanded the war on poverty and done something about the war on drugs. Instead of imploding under the weight of the Nixonian repression, the Students for the Democrat Society might have evolved into an influential caucus of the Democrat Party. None of them are going to do that if you don't get rid of the CIA. So that's basically the end of it. No student organization will ever function in the United States effectively based on its constituents or whatever the cause is. I don't care if you agree with the cause or not. They will all be infiltrated by the CIA. Period. Dot. Okay. That's what I got. I've been saving this for a very long time, waiting to go through it, because it ties in so many of the pieces that we've been working on all of this time. So anyway, Lowenstein's assassination is unbelievable. Reopening. I knew all along would be here as soon as you saw the topic. Thank you for being here, by the way. Same with Mager Sarge, Bridget, Elwood Sue, all of you guys, Renee, William, Deborah, all you guys are always here and are always awesome. Okay, so I am going to do this one ad, which I have told you guys about. I've actually tried this coffee. It's called 1775 coffee. If you haven't tried it, now's the time to do it. They actually have a starter kit that is only available for 1,000 units. We're getting the bold, dark roast that hits harder than a CNN fact check, the smooth medium roast. And I've had both the medium roast and the dark roast. I love both of them. They also have a new one that's a Vitality Mushroom Coffee for energy and laser focus, and apparently does not result in like a crash at the end of the day or kind of that afternoon, what's going on fog. All single origin, small batch, toxin free, mold free. So basically organic, not their claim, mine. It's awesome. Plus, you're also getting a gold spoon clip because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. I agree. A frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's political opinions. I love their sense of humor. And a black 1775 tumbler that says, "I don't take life advice or caffeine from a woke sea witch." $170 worth of coffee and gear, yours for $99, or you can just buy their coffee. This is for the ones that have been watching the 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. It is. And the coffee is amazing. Again, so go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab the starter kit. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something, just like Rumble does. Start your day with coffee that actually backs what you believe. And I'm going to start trying to find people that we can support. Even if I don't get paid for it, I found this natural made with cane sugar caramel syrup that I had discovered a couple of years ago and forgot completely all about it because as soon as I got it, I ate it all, and my husband threw away the bottle, and I couldn't remember, and I couldn't find the email where I had ordered it, but I just got some more, and they're on X, and so I'm going to bring that the next time we do one of these kind of off our 4 o'clock show, which I don't really want to bring this stuff into. So anyway, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. See you guys at 4 p.m.